All right, so get ready for a wild ride because we are diving deep into the human brain. Well, more like how it evolved to be so good at, thinking. We're tackling the evolution of human cognition today, and I know you've brought some really cool excerpts from this book, Thought in a Hostile World.
Yeah, it's by Kim Sterelny, and it's a fascinating look at how our brains got to be so, well, us.
And I'm ready to unpack it all. So what's the main takeaway? What's Stirlny's big idea?
So he really pushes back against this idea that human intelligence is just about, like, reacting to the environment.
Right, like we're not just robots programmed to, I don't know, grab any fruit we see and call it a day, right?
Exactly. He argues that if our ancestors were only working with basic detection systems, those pre-programmed reflexes, they wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you give me an example?
Think about it. If early humans had just one alarm bell in their brain for food, and it went off for any fruit, no matter what.
Oh, yikes. They'd be in big trouble if there was a drought or something.
Exactly. They wouldn't last long at all.
Okay, so then how did we evolve to be more adaptable? Did Stir only have any ideas about that?
He did. He talks about what he calls these fuels for success. And a big one is this concept of decoupled representation.
Decoupled representation. Okay, gotta be honest, I'm a little lost already.
It's simpler than it sounds. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a mental map in your head.
Got it.
Some birds have these incredibly detailed maps, but only for specific tasks, like finding their nest. But that's all they can do with it.
So it's like having a GPS that only takes you home, even if you're starving and need to find a restaurant.
Exactly. Decoupled representation is about having a mental map that's flexible, one you can use for all sorts of things, in all sorts of situations.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So how do scientists figure out if an animal has this decoupled representation thing? We can't exactly give a crow a written test.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but Sterling gets into how researchers are trying to figure that out, like with tool use in crows or spatial reasoning in chimps.
Oh, cool. So they're watching how they solve problems.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to put together this evolutionary puzzle, but there are some pieces missing still.
I can imagine. Okay, so we've got this idea that intelligence is more than just reflexes. It needs flexibility, right? Being able to apply knowledge to different situations. But what pushed for that kind of intelligence in the first place? Why did we need to evolve that?
Well, one really interesting idea is the social intelligence hypothesis. It basically says that navigating the craziness of primate social life was a huge driving force.
So, like, our ancestors had to outsmart each other to survive? Sounds intense.
It was. Think about all the mental gymnastics involved. You've got alliances, hierarchies, deception, cooperation. Keeping track of all that requires some serious brain power.
Wow, yeah. I never thought about it like that. It's like surviving in a high-stakes game of chess where everyone's got their own agenda.
Exactly. To make sense of why someone does something, to predict what they'll do next, you need to remember their past actions, their relationships with everyone else. You have to keep all that information in your mind and use it in different ways.
Okay, that is wild. So we've got this pressure to be socially intelligent, but humans take it even further, don't we? With cooperation.
Right.
Like, we're practically hardwired to work in teams.
That's right, and it's a key part of Cyril Naney's argument. He dives into the evolutionary reasons for that, and it's fascinating stuff.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
Well, one thing he points to is the power of something called group selection. And now this goes against some traditional evolutionary thinking, but it makes a lot of sense for humans.
Oh, how so?
Well, the basic idea is that groups that were better at working together, at cooperating towards some shared goal, they would have outcompeted groups that were less cooperative.
Ah, so it's not just about being smart as an individual, but how well you play with others. I like it.
Exactly. This ability to work together would have meant those groups could get more resources, defend themselves better, and ultimately have more kids pass on their genes. So over time, the genes for cooperation, they would become more and more common.
Makes sense. But, and not to be a downer here, but we all know cooperation can be, well, messy. What about the people who try to cheat the system? The ones who want the benefits without the work? Free riders, as they're called, I think.
Ah, the classic free rider problem. Yes, Sterolini addresses that too. He talks about how early humans might have gotten around those challenges.
So did we evolve, like a built-in lie detector or something? That would be handy.
Wouldn't it? Though I think we'd have figured that one out by now. No, Sterolini talks more about things like punishment for cheaters, the importance of your reputation in the group, even the role of
Well,
emotions.
emotions, like feeling guilty if you're about to slack off.
Exactly. Those feelings might have evolved to make cheating less appealing and cooperation feel more rewarding.
Wow. It's like evolution figured out how to make teamwork feel good. Pretty sneaky.
It is. And that actually leads us to another super interesting part of human cognitive evolution,
Yeah.
niche construction.
Niche construction. Okay, now you're just using big words to make me feel dumb. What in the world is niche construction?
It sounds way more complicated than it is, trust me. It just means we don't just adapt to our environment. We actively shape it.
Okay, go on. I'm listening.
Think about tools, for example. Early humans used them to change their surroundings. And those changes then create new challenges, which then pushes them to evolve even more.
So it's like a feedback loop. We get smarter, create new tools which make us face new challenges, and then we get even smarter because of those challenges.
You got it. And Sterelny really emphasizes this idea of downstream niche construction. It's not just about making our lives a little easier in the moment. It's about the changes that impact future generations.
You mean like passing down knowledge? Or
Yeah.
building things that last?
Yes, language, writing, agriculture, those are all forms of downstream niche construction.
Hmm.
They completely reshaped what future generations could do.
It's like we're constantly upping the ante for ourselves. No wonder human intelligence has advanced so quickly.
Exactly. And this brings us to, you guessed it, another piece of this puzzle, phenotypic plasticity.
You're killing me with these terms. Phenotypic plasticity. Break it down for me. What in the world is that?
Think of it like adaptability. It's the ability of an organism to develop different traits based on its environment, like a chameleon changing its color to blend in.
So we're not stuck with one ideal way of being.
Not at all. And Sterelny argues that this adaptability is what makes humans, well, human. We can thrive in all kinds of environments, from the Arctic to the rainforest. We can build skyscrapers and write symphonies. Our brains are incredibly flexible.
That's incredible when you think about it. So instead of being a specialist, we're more like, what, a Swiss Army knife of a species?
Exactly. And there's evidence for it in how long our childhood is compared to other primates.
Because we need more time to learn everything.
Precisely. Our brains are literally shaped by the world we grow up in.
So it's not just nature or nurture, it's both.
Exactly. And this adaptability, combined with niche construction and our unique ability to cooperate, it's what really sets us apart from other animals.
This is blowing my mind. But it makes you wonder, how is all this amazing stuff organized in our brains? Is it like a computer with different modules for different tasks?
That's the million-dollar question.
Mm.
And Sterelny tackles it head-on, looking at whether the human brain is just a collection of specialized modules or something well-rounded.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. Tell me more about this whole module debate.
Yeah, so that idea you mentioned about the brain being like a Swiss Army knife with different modules for different jobs, it's a popular one. But Sterelny's not totally convinced.
Really? So not all about the Swiss Army knife metaphor. What's the problem with it, according to him?
Well, he says it's not that it's totally wrong, more that we shouldn't take it too literally. Like one example he uses is language. People often say that's a classic example of module, right?
Right, like we're born with this language module just waiting to be switched on.
Exactly. And while there are some good arguments for why humans might have some innate language abilities, Sterelny thinks language is kind of a special case.
So language is the exception, not the rule. What about everything else, all the other complex things we do with our brains? How does he explain that?
That's his point. He thinks stuff like social intelligence, even that folk biology we were talking about earlier, it's better explained by our ability to learn and how we pass that learning down through culture. Especially this idea of what he calls get ready for it, downstream epistemic engineering.
Okay, gotta admit, you lost me a little with that one. Downstream epistemic engineering. It sounds impressive, but help me out here.
Fair enough.
Ah.
It's a mouthful, for sure. But it's actually not that complicated. It just means we change our environment to make it easier to understand.
Oh, okay, so it's not that our brains come preloaded with these specialized modules. It's more that we've shaped the world around us in a way that makes those things easier to pick up.
Exactly. Think about it. We tell stories, right? We have rituals. We even make facial expressions. All that stuff makes social information way more accessible. It's like we're basically teaching each other how to be social all the time, even without realizing it.
Wow, when you put it like that, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's like we're constantly building this invisible cultural scaffolding that helps us make sense of the world.
Precisely. And it all circles back to this idea that humans are incredible learners, right? We're not limited to whatever's like pre-programmed in our brains.
Yeah.
We learn from each other, from the world around us.
So it's not just nature and it's not just nurture, it's both working together.
Exactly. And that's really important to keep in mind because it means if we really want to understand how the human mind works, we can't just study brains in isolation. We've got to think about the social world, the cultural context, all of it.
It's like trying to understand what a fish is like by taking it out of the water and just staring at it. You're missing the whole picture.
Yeah. Exactly. And all this kind of makes you wonder, right, how unique are humans, really? Are we in our own league, cognitively speaking, or?
The age-old question, what separates us from the apes? Are we just a fancier model, or is there something fundamentally different about how we think?
Yeah, and Sterling actually digs into this. He compares us to chimps, our closest primate relatives, and he looks at all sorts of things, their understanding of cause and effect, whether they can use tools, even their ability to strategize socially.
So is there any evidence of those fuels for success in our primate cousins?
You know, there are definitely some similarities. Chimps are seriously smart. They use tools, they have complex social structures, they can even plan for the future to some degree. They're not just hanging out peeling bananas all day, that's for sure.
Okay, good to know. So where do they fall short? Where do we differ?
Well, one thing Sterling points out is that even though chimps use tools, they don't seem to really get the underlying cause and effect.
So they're good at following a set of rules, like if I use this stick this way, I get termites, but they don't understand the broader concept of how tools work.
Yeah, it seems that way. And that kind of points to a key difference in our cognitive abilities, our capacity for abstract thought. We can think about gravity or democracy, things that aren't right there in front of us, not tied to our senses.
Only humans would sit in traffic and ponder the meaning of life, right? Which is, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, for sure.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's the human condition in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But this ability to think abstractly is what lets us develop language, create technology, build these massive societies.
It's like we unlocked a whole new level. But it also makes you wonder, if we've evolved to be so adaptable, so influenced by our surroundings, what does that mean for us now in this crazy, constantly changing world?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something that Sterling really wrestles with. He argues that if we want to understand the challenges we're facing today, well, we need to look back at where we came from. Our evolutionary past is relevant.
Okay, so it's not just about looking back for the sake of it. It's about using that knowledge to make sense of the present and maybe even, I don't know, navigate the future a little better.
Exactly. He even talks about this mismatch between how we evolved, psychologically speaking, and the modern world we've created. It's like our brains are kind of still wired for a world of scarcity and danger, even though we live in a time of abundance and relative safety.
Okay, so that's why we're all so stressed out. Our poor Stone Age brains don't stand a chance against email and social media and the 24-hour news cycle.
Right. It's overload.
Yeah.
And this mismatch can lead to all sorts of issues. Think about it. We crave sugary, fatty foods that used to be rare, but now they're everywhere. We're bombarded with information. Our tribal instincts are constantly triggered, even though we live in a globalized world. It's a lot.
So basically, our brains are running on outdated software, trying to keep up with the demands of the 21st century with our Stone Age operating system.
It's a great way to put it. But here's the thing. Sterling also makes it very clear that evolution isn't destiny. We're not stuck. We're not slaves to our genes or our Stone Age instincts.
Oh, thank goodness. So there's hope for us yet.
Absolutely. We're capable of incredible things. We can learn, we have culture, we can even reflect on our own thoughts and behaviors. That gives us a ton of flexibility.
So you're saying we can override our programming. We can choose the salad instead of the donut. We can resist the pull of doom scrolling for hours.
Exactly. We have the power to make those choices. And that's what makes this whole thing so empowering. Understanding where we come from an evolutionary standpoint. It's not about feeling trapped by the past. It's about using that knowledge to make better choices today.
It's like having a user manual for your own mind, right? If you know how it works, why it glitches out sometimes, you can actually do something about it.
Exactly. And honestly, it should make us more compassionate, too, to ourselves and everyone else.
I love that. Knowing that our brains are playing catch up with the modern world, it makes me feel a little better about my own, quirks. We're all just works in progress, right?
They are. And the coolest part, we're still evolving.
Yeah.
Which brings up a whole other question. What does the future hold for human cognition?
Ooh, that's a big one. With all the technology we're creating, are we about to hit, like, a whole new stage of evolution? Seriously. I mean, you've got AI writing poetry now, gene editing that seems like it's straight out of a movie, and virtual reality that's getting more and more realistic every day. Is this all going to, like, fundamentally change what it means to be human, at least on a cognitive level?
Oh, it's a question that gets everyone speculating, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Are we going to merge with machines,
Yeah.
develop entirely new senses, unlock mental abilities that we can't even imagine right now? I mean, it's exciting to think about, though maybe a little unnerving, too.
It's funny though, right? We love to picture the future of intelligence and all that, but it's like we forget that evolution. Well, it doesn't really care about our timelines, does it?
Not at all. It's not like evolution has this calendar reminder, okay, time to upgrade humans version 2.0 coming soon.
Exactly. So as cool as it would be to like suddenly become superhuman next week, it probably won't be quite so dramatic.
Probably not. But here's the thing. Even if our brain structure isn't undergoing this massive overnight transformation, the way we think, the way we interact with the world,
Yep.
well, that's evolving crazy fast right in front of us.
Case in point, the internet. Think about how much that's changed things, how we get information, how we communicate, even how we like figure out who we are. It's like this whole other layer of reality we're all plugged into now.
It really is. And that makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is this digital world, is it just an extension of our niche?
Yeah.
Something we shaped to make our lives a bit easier?
Yeah.
Or is it something more, like a fundamental shift in how we relate to reality itself?
Whoa. It's like we're building this massive interconnected brain, and the internet is its nervous system or something. And that collective brain, it's evolving so fast, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. It's changing how we think, how we learn, everything.
It's mind-blowing. And, it all comes back to Sterelny's main point, which is that human intelligence,
Yeah.
it's not static, right? It's this constant give and take between our biology, our environment, our culture. It's all connected.
So instead of intelligence being this fixed thing, we should think of it as, what, a process. Capacity that's always evolving to meet the challenges around us.
Exactly. The future of human intelligence. Well, it's not predetermined, is it? We're creating it right now. Every time we make a choice, develop a new technology, build a new kind of society. It's a pretty awesome responsibility when you think about it.
It really is. And kind of a relief, too, right? Like, it's not all downhill from here. We have a say in what happens next.
Exactly. We do. And that's where understanding our evolutionary past. It's not just about knowing where we came from. It's about using that knowledge to create a better future. For ourselves, for humanity, for the planet. It's a pretty amazing thing to think about.
It really is. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive, but I hope this has sparked your curiosity. I hope it's left you with this sense of wonder about the incredible journey of the human mind.
It's a journey that's far from over. So to everyone listening, stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop asking the big questions. You never know what amazing insights you might uncover.